Hello, welcome back to Only Pistols. Today we're having a look at a Walther LP53. This is a 177 spring-powered single-shot target pistol. Production dates 1953 through to 1976. This one was produced in 1960 according to the serial numbers. Let's start by looking at the markings on it. So on this side you've got the serial number marked on the frame extension, and then made in Germany, the Walther banner, LP model 53 and the caliber 4.5 and the Walther patent. Otherwise on this side you've got the grip marking for Walther with the Walther banner, and the same on the other side, Walther banner. There's no other markings on this, there's one production mark further inside. So construction, you've got a rifled steel barrel, and that's contained within an aluminium alloy barrel shroud that goes all the way to the receiver. The frame is aluminium alloy as well, and then you've got steel that makes up the piston cylinder, and the piston itself is also steel. The cocking link is steel and the trigger. The finish is painted, and on the receiver it's a crackle finish, and depending on what age of LP53 you've got, that sometimes was plain or crackle finish, and the finishes change a bit through the years, and the only other thing that really changed on these over the production was the back of the grip. Otherwise with this you've got a barrel weight. That's steel, it's a two-part barrel weight, and that just quite simply clamps around the barrel to give you extra weight on the muzzle. And you can see on this one that the finish has been quite worn off, and that's probably just by somebody actually cocking it like that. So sights, spring for the elevation and that thumb wheel on top, and the rear sight is an interchangeable leaf, so you could, get it focused properly, you can pop those rear sights out and they come in different forms, from the notch there through to U notches and different sizes. And the windage is this knob on the side, so again very easy to adjust, click adjustable. Foresight element, interchangeable, so this is one of the square post parents, but they also have them with like a balloon top, and to change them just unscrew that screw on the end and they just slide into the sight ramp, which again is just cast into the barrel shroud. The grips are plastic, two pieces, and quite a good profile to them. So they're not plain, but not as aggressive as some, but for the time very usable grips, and give a really decent amount of support to your hand. Other things to note, the barrel. Obviously that's a bit bigger a hole than 177, and what it is that the first inch or so 30 to 25 mil, is relieved, so the muzzle itself of the barrel is about here, and the reason for that is that you get a cocking aid that comes with them, and this is one of the original ones, so it's actually got 4 slots in it, so it's spring steel, and the idea of that is it just slots over the end of the barrel, so that when you cock it, it's just something to hold on to, gives you an easier, more leverage to cock the pistol without hitting the sight. With that, I found if you just keep that in your hand like that, then when you're shooting, you just hold it, and then as soon as you want to cock the pistol again, you just slip it back over, and it becomes very natural to just hold it. So otherwise, you've got this knob on the bottom here, and that just simply unscrews, and inside there you've got the piston and the springs, so that's part of the disassembly, but that, if you want to change the spring, you just undo that. This one's nice and loose, some you'll find are not. So how to cock it? Put your cocking aid on, and quite simply just break the barrel open, and you can start to see the cocking link moving already. And what that's going to do is we pull that down, that's pushing the piston down, compressing the spring, sets the trigger sear. So then, otherwise, while we've got it open here, This one is a non-adjustable trigger, so if it was an adjustable one, you would see a little set screw in that bit in there. It's not very easy to see because it's all black, but this one hasn't, and they either did or they didn't. This one doesn't. The lockup is on a spring detent, so there's a sprung tab there, and that just quite simply locks over that pin. To focus on it, so it locks over that pin to hold it down in place. So loading it, because it's a brake barrel, is perfectly simple. You literally drop the pellet in the end of the barrel, close it up, and just take up the first stage weight on the trigger, and it fires. The trigger is two-stage but not adjustable, as I said. Some were, some weren't. This is one of the ones that wasn't, but it's a very nice trigger. It is just over 500 grams weight, so it's still usable if you want to do a competition today. Some of them were set considerably higher because it was aimed primarily at the 2.2 sports pistol market, so those were kind of a 1.3 kilos. So this one's probably been lightened by somebody at some stage, but it's not adjustable, but it is legal on the air pistol levels now. So a very good looking pistol, isn't it? So what else about this one? Well, when I got it, it was in a pretty ropey condition. Although it's very nicely presented in its wooden box, and it's got the barrel weight and spare sight elements, which are quite unusual to find, it wasn't moving. Although it cock and fire, it wasn't producing any air, so it wasn't moving a pellet. And there were also problems with the sights. So what did we find inside when we took it apart? Well, that's the piston head that came out. So what you've got there is a leather washer, and that's the steel pin, the top of the steel pin. It's a rivet. What of course it's missing, if anyone knows them, is the rubber buffer that should be on the top. So basically for a long while, and there was no sign of any rubber left inside that cylinder at all. So for a long while that's been hammering up against the top of the piston, top of the cylinder, and it had caused quite a bit of damage on the transfer tube. So this one needed some work. So that leather seal wasn't making any proper friction anymore, so that got changed. I did try it with a standard or a new old stock piston, which I've got, piston head, and they quite simply key into the end of the piston itself, which is a steel piston. In the end, I went with a Tony Leach parachute style piston. So it's a more modern design, and it means that when you pull the piston down, it compresses then, and when it fires, it compresses all the air and moves all the air through the gun. So you get a more efficient use of the piston stroke. It also probably reduces the speed of it down a bit. So that was one thing. The other thing that needed sorting out was, it's very difficult to see, but the adjustment for the elevation is quite simply just a threaded section into this aluminium alloy top barrel slave. And the problem with that is it's quite a soft alloy, and over time that moved backwards and forwards, and it had basically threaded itself. So there was like half a turn of thread left at the bottom with the sight wedged all the way down. So what I did was I turned up a nut, effectively, with a threaded section, and it's a M4 fine thread, and then drilled out the old threaded section and glued that in place. So I was able to retain the original thumb elevation screw, and it's fairly unobtrusive as a repair. Other things I did while I was there, well, having got into reading the kind of how to make an LP53 better, other stuff I did other than the straightforward repairs. One bit was to actually reduce the transfer port. So just get the pen on it. So if you can just see there, you can just see a brass section. So this should be 4mm, and the transfer port runs from the top of the breech face there directly down onto the top of the piston. So it's a straight line, Obviously where that steel piston head had been bashing up and down, it had pretty much closed that over. So I'd very gently drilled that out, and again that's aluminium, so thumb and finger with a drill bit, no power tools were used. And then made a piece of brass tube to fit and slipped that in. That's just glued at the top end just to seal it in place. But that again offers a bit more resistance to the piston coming up and gets you a faster jet of air coming in behind the pellet. Otherwise, the springs on these normally, or the early versions in this one, were 2 springs, so counterwound springs, and they sat one inside the other. Meant you've got quite a lot of spring to compress, and I've changed it then for a more modern design, so a single spring, when I used a HW30 spring cut to the right length and then the ends refinished. As well as that, it's got a steel weight up behind the piston and a nylon guide in the bottom section. And the whole reason for that really is just to give you a better firing cycle. And it does have a better firing cycle. The recoil on these is vertical. Obviously, with the traditional spring power pistol, you would have all these springs and everything up here, all in line. So when you pull the trigger, you've got recoil trying to push back, pellet going forward, so the recoil is straight back. With these, because the recoil is vertical, it's a bit more of a jump. So it pays to try and calm it down. And certainly the adjustments I've made to this one do make a difference. So it's also quite a lot faster for only having 1 spring. Also, the other added advantage is power. So normally kind of looking at 375, 400 feet per second from one of these. They've got a pretty good air to air ratio for the amount of air that you get moved by the piston. With these modifications, this one's now making just over 500 feet per second. So that's a lot faster firing cycle. The pellets in that barrel for a lot less time, which is good. It's a good thing. And certainly compared to my other LP53, this one is noticeably easier to control, and there's less felt recoil. Accuracy wise, yeah, it's perfectly accurate. Excuse me pulling them off again, but I'm not in that much practice with this. So it is still a spring powered air pistol. It is still hold sensitive, but it's more than capable. They're perfectly good, capable pistols. So that's it. It is still usable. The grip is very nice. It's not particularly long as a pistol. The weight is good. The sight radius is good. The sights are good sight picture. The trigger's really nice on this one, although as I said, not adjustable, so nothing I can claim with that. But aside from the fact that everybody knows them as the James Bond gun, I really like this. I have made the changes I've made to this one because it came to me broken and not working. I felt fairly safe in doing it. The changes I've made are all can all be removed. The only one you wouldn't remove obviously would be the sight adjustment one. So the springs can be changed back and the piston weight's taken out and things. So I haven't destroyed a classic pistol, as it were, but it is certainly a more usable pistol to use, more forgiving, shall we say, of your action. So if you've liked this, then please like, share, subscribe, tell other people about it, hit the bell icon, and otherwise I'll see you again soon with a less modified pistol, probably. Thanks.